going on, everybody? It's Ricky from Video Homicide, and I have to talk about a show that I've been watching on and off for the last, honestly, maybe 15 years since this show came out. Quick little side note: I was once in Toronto with my family, and we went to one of these little sort of, not really a bodega, but just this little tiny shitty store that had a bunch of stuff. They had a bunch of burnt movies, burnt TV shows, and I picked this show up. And I have it somewhere on this wall. I don't know where exactly. It could be in a box in my room, to be honest with you. But that show was Afro Samurai. And I started it a few times, maybe 3 or 4 times. I watched the first couple episodes, but I never ever really finished it. Or at least I never finished it to my knowledge. I couldn't remember what happened in the end. So the other night I sat down and I watched all 5 episodes, which totals to about 2 hours, and I had a blast with it. So Afro Samurai, for anyone that doesn't know, is I believe it was a manga, or it was a graphic novel that got it got adapted into a TV show, or to an animated epic, if you want to call it that. I'm not the biggest fan of anime, but when it comes to shit like this, Cowboy Bebop, that's the kind of stuff that I like to see. And Afro Samurai is voiced by Samuel Jackson. Ron Perlman is in this film as the bad guy. And basically, to break down what the show is about and what I liked about the show was, it starts off with the number one headband. So essentially, there's all these headbands that are numbered from 1 down to, I don't know, maybe 10. And if you have the number 1 headband, you're basically a god. The only person that can challenge you in a fight is the person that has the number 2 headband. So at the beginning of the show, a young Afro, little Afro, is with his dad, and his dad is the number 1. And this cowboy kind of gunslinger dude challenges him. And in their fight, Afro's dad is killed. He's decapitated. And so this gunslinger guy takes the headband and says to Afro, come find me when you're ready. And Afro, as a kid, takes his father's head and he brings it with him wherever he goes, up until a point where he's kind of challenged by these assholes, and they take out the father's head, and they joke around, they fuck with it and all that, and little Afro gets his ass kicked essentially. But he gets discovered by this sort of not a karate school, but just this little village, not really a village. I mean, I'll call it a karate school. And the master, he trains Afro, and he's got a couple of buddies in there, and this is all explained throughout the show in the form of flashbacks. It's sort of a non-linear type of show. It's going back and forth. But I'm just to give you the sort of chronological order of how I taken it, or of how I view it rather. I think it would actually be cool to re-edit this and make it chronological. That'd be a cool little experiment. But so Afro, now being trained by this master, by his friends and all that stuff, they go through a couple of trials and tribulations where they gotta beat up some assholes. Afro starts fights and he gets saved by his buddy, and then later on, he's grown up. He has the number 2 headband, and you don't really know why he got the number 2 headband. I'll get to that in a minute, but he's now on the run looking for the number 1 headband guy, the gunslinger dude. And one thing about this show is it's cool because it kind of, it's almost like a period piece, like a Japanese period piece, like Lone Wolf and Cub style time. But there's also a little bit of technology, there's cell phones, there's SD cards, there's sort of high tech binoculars and stuff like that. It's really cool. I like the blending of the technology with the old fashioned ways. But Afro, he's on his mission to go find the number 1 headband, and along the way he has to fight a couple of random people, and he meets this girl who takes care of him, who ends up being this chick from his past that helped him out in a way. So that's his first friend from the past that gets killed. And then next he has to fight this dude who was his buddy from the karate school when he was a kid. And then it goes this guy attacks him with 2 samurai swords, and then it goes back and explains why he uses 2 swords. And I thought that was really cool. His explanation was sort of if you have 2 swords, you can defend twice as much. and it's really really interesting. I've always been a fan of martial arts, different things like that. I dabbled in martial arts myself a little bit for like maybe like 3 months, but one of my biggest regrets is not sticking with it, because now I'd probably be fucking killer. But anyways, Afrodeath fights his buddy, and it's sad because it's like the buddy has like such a problem with Afrodeath because the master of their karate school was the number two headband that killed, or that took it. The master took Afrodeath's number 2 headband when he was a kid and just stashed it, and Afro finds out that this was the guy that like threw my dad's severed head around and all that, and like made a mockery of me when I was a kid. So he kills his old master, and now he's the number 2 headband. And then it goes on from there. So he's got all of his friends that resent him and all that, and that's what leads into this 2 sword wielding dude, trying to test him. And he's not even testing him for the headband. He's testing him because he's like, you fucked over our master and you deserve to die. So flash forward a little bit further, Afro is now up against the number 1 headband. And that's where you see that there's like other headbands, like all the way, I would say as many as 10. And Afro kills the guy, of course, because it wouldn't be a show if he didn't kill him. So he kills this gunslinger dude. Although it takes a little while, and it's cool because like the animation in this show is so sort of like this quick, but really not super realistic, but more like super exaggerated stuff. It's really hard to explain, but you can see here in these images that it's just such a unique style of art. Like I really am drawn to it. So Afro kills the number 1 headband. Now he's got the number 1 headband, and people are trying to challenge him. And it flashed forward years later to the number 2 headband showing up, and that's his old buddy that has the 2 swords. And now he was sort of like an android kind of guy. So that's the show, Afro Samurai, man. And the good part about this show is there's actually a sequel, which I have down there. It's called Resurrection, which I'll be watching shortly. So with that being said, definitely check out Afro Samurai, because I believe you will not be disappointed. Another show that I want to start on is Boondocks, because I kind of get a little bit of, not really Boondocks vibes, but it makes me kind of want to watch like the anime that's more my style, or more like made for me in a way, because Boondocks is a show that I think everyone grew up with. Not everyone, but like people my age grew up with Boondocks. And it's just like sort of this political satire, which I believe I would appreciate now more than I did when I was a kid, because I was so young. A lot of the stuff they were talking about, sure, it was relevant to what was happening in pop culture and all that kind of shit. But now I just think I'd appreciate it more because I know more, I'm smarter, and it just, I think it'll go better nowadays. Same with this show. Like I couldn't really appreciate this show when I was a kid because certain things hadn't happened in my life yet. So once certain shit happens, I kind of am able to relate with Afro Samurai a little bit better. And yeah, with that being said, definitely check out the Teespring account. Definitely check out the wallet. Definitely check out the Facebook page. Links to all that stuff will be in the description. And yeah, with that being said, adios.